Well, if you're asking just from curiosity about me, the answer is I don't know. I get a bit confused when the discussion turns to metaphysics. If you're asking because you want to know if mystical powers are necessary to achieve enlightenment, then the answer is no. No superpowers required. If you're asking whether or not you get mystical powers as like a bonus when you become enlightened, then the answer isn't so clear. I don't see auras or know the future or anything like that. I suppose I could go out and develop some mystical skills, but I wouldn't know what to do with them. I have no such desire. On the other hand, I have heightened abilities, might be a good way to put it, that most of you haven't gotten around to developing or recognizing in yourself yet. These abilities are not really related to enlightenment directly, though. At least they don't hinge upon it, nor it on they. I'm talking about the ability to manifest desires, for one, to shape your personal reality. Another might be the ability to view life not in detail, but in broad patterns, as if from a greater altitude, and to flow through it from that more elevated perspective. That's why I get hesitant when asked about my third eye and all that. Someone who doesn't have the knowledge to shape his own personal reality might consider it a power or as something mystical, whereas to me it's just something I know how to do. I started doing it for very practical purposes before awakening, and I never thought of it as anything but the way things really work. There's no great mystery to it. It's only magic when you don't know how it works. Once you know, you know. I don't think the guy who adjusts the timing on my car is a mystically empowered dude. He just knows how to do something I don't. I smile at the rapt faces dancing in the firelight. They're listening. Strange as it may sound, I sometimes forget that people are actually listening. I guess I sometimes get the feeling that I'm just singing my song because it amuses me to do so. I forget that it actually amuses others, too. Which 2 or 3 dozen? Mary asks, and it takes me a moment to realize that she's jumping back to my statement about which books would remain if I were more discriminating about the library. Oh, I'd want to be a little careful answering that, I say. The reason for the books I'd choose wouldn't be that they are particularly enlightened or enlightening books, or even specifically on the subject of enlightenment. My choices would be based on what I feel is useful knowledge on the path to enlightenment, which is very different from enlightenment itself. In this light, I'd have a bunch of books and maybe some movies, too, because they're often a common experience we share and can provide an interesting framework for highlighting certain issues. Like what? She asks. I think about some of the movies I've seen in the last few years that most everybody would be familiar with. Well, The Matrix would be a good example of a movie I could get a lot of use out of. Total Recall, The 13th Floor, Blade Runner. Those are all good looks at the flimsy and even arbitrary nature of what we consider reality. Joe versus the Volcano is another one I'd use because of the parable-like view it takes of the death-rebirth process. There are probably a few dozen more if I thought about it. The Peter Brook version of the Mahabharata, certainly. All the Mornings of the World would be a nice look at the teacher-student relationship. What Dreams May Come to demonstrate the relationship between thoughts and reality. Plenty of others for different reasons. Harvey, just because. I pause to consider and decide I'd better stick with general recommendations not too open to misinterpretation. I don't want to mention any books that would require me to include a lengthy disqualifier. As for books, besides the ones that you would all guess, various versions and translations of the Bhagavad Gita and the Tao Te Ching, there'd be a version of the Mahabharata accessible to Westerners. The Three Pillars of Zen by Roshi Philip Kapleau, Stranger in a Strange Land by Heinlein, The Razor's Edge by Mom, Walden, Leaves of Grass, Emerson's Essays, anything by Stan Groff, Hero with 1,000 Faces by Joseph Campbell, Holographic Universe by Michael Talbot, and so forth, all good for different reasons. There would also be a small collection of channeled material, some spiritual novels with a theme of rebirth. Almost everyone reacts at the same time to the mention of channeled material. The general response seems to be a mixture of surprise and disbelief. I find channeled material very useful and interesting, not just for teaching, but for my own understanding of the phenomenal world in which, as you can see, I exist just like anyone else. If you want me to be specific, I'd say I'd like Michael for understanding ego and personality structure. When it comes to personal reality, I like Seth. If I have questions about flow and manifestation and desire, then I read Abraham. I might be forgetting something, but those are the main ones I like. A Course in Miracles certainly has its moments. So those channeled entities were instrumental in your own... Oh, no, not really. I wave a hand dismissively. It's more like combined. They make up my user's manual for being a human on Earth. Being Human 101. This is why I want to be careful about this discussion. I like the books I mentioned, but I don't really look at them that often, usually just when I have a specific question. So what do you read for amusement? Asks Mary. Besides Harlequin romances? I like Osho, the enlightened guy, formerly known as the Bhagwan Sri Rajneesh. Some surprise registers throughout the group about this, which is quite understandable. If one equates enlightenment with sainthood, then Osho might come off as more of an anti-saint, especially if one has only heard the stories of murder plots and free love and power grabs and tax evasion and the 90 Rolls Royces. I like his teaching style. I like his take on Zen. I am in awe of his mind. And novels. I read a lot of fiction. I can see from their reaction that I need to say more. All right, you got me. I spend a lot of time just killing time. I play video games, read books, watch movies. I'd say I probably blow several hours a day that way, but I don't see it as a waste because I don't have anything better to spend my time on. I couldn't put it to better use because I'm not trying to become something or accomplish anything. I have no dissatisfaction to drive me, no ambition to draw me. I've done what I came to do. I'm just killing time till time kills me. This seems to have a quieting effect on the group. I suppose they hadn't considered the possibility that enlightenment was the end of a lot of things we don't normally think of as having ends. Finally, Mary breaks the spell by returning us to the discussion of books. What if you were stranded on a desert island, she asks, and could only have one book? Easy, I reply. Calvin and Hobbes. Everyone laughs. I close my eyes and lean my head back, and everyone takes that as a signal to give me some peace. They talk among themselves, but I'm not listening to them. I'm listening to everything and nothing, and feeling the light rain on my face and breathing the fresh night air, bringing it all the way down so it cleanses me and carries away the heaviness that builds up after long periods in character. I'm not tired or ending the evening. I just want to not hear my own voice for a while. I want to pay attention to the rain and to the breeze. I want to let one topic fade out so that a new and fresher one might come along. Chapter 25. The Uncherished Sword. This sword is an ugly, meaty tool. Not one for pageants and ceremonies, not one for a collector's wall, not one to show the grandkids. It has no scabbard, no tassel. No craftsman has left his mark. The handle is cracked and dry. The metal has lost its shine. dull and dirty, pitted with age, dried blood caked at the hilt. Once it held a razor's edge and shone with the light of the sun. But now it sits unused, forgotten. When beheading time comes, I know right where it is, but beheading time is over. Why read about another's sword? It's your head that's still attached. Jed McKenna. End of Disc 5.